Alright guys, welcome back to My Classic Fords. Tonight I'm building a couple steel boxes for a fella, and I thought you might want to see how to weld them up and grind them out. So let's check it out. So what I got here, this is just regular mild steel. As you can see, it's been ground to a mirror finish. You can see it's fairly straight and smooth. There's actually a seam welded here and welded across here. I'll show you that I'm not joking about the seams. So as you can clearly see, that is the only side that's ground completely off, and you can't tell there was a weld seam there. So if you want to kind of know how to do that, how to get that kind of a quality finish on just a regular piece of mild steel, stick around, I'm about to show you. Alright guys, so this is how it starts out. That's a piece of 1/4 inch flat bar that I bent around into a box. And there's one seam here. So I bent this all the way around and just left one seam. So what we're going to do now, we're going to bevel this with a grinder. We're going to put a decent bevel here. We're also going to put a bevel here. And that way we can fill it full of weld. We can put our cap on. I have a 3/8 cap plate to put on. It's just a square cut plate. And it's going to have that bevel right here. So what I'll do now, I'll grind that bevel on. I'll grind a bevel here. I'm just going to do it with a sanding pad. It's the quickest and easiest way to do it, I find. So we'll do that, and I'll show you the next step. Alright guys, so this is what we're up to for a bevel. As you can see, it's not that big. I'm just putting about maybe a 3/16 bevel on it. You don't need much. This part is not structural. We're just kind of using the weld as like a body filler. I'm actually going to go inside and put a weld on the inside of both the seam and the cap plate. So what we're doing here, we don't want a lot of weld here because we don't want to grind it. We don't want to have to put multiple passes in it. I just want to put one pass of weld in it and then grind it off. Then we'll weld the inside for strength. What these are for the bottom of a gate post. Just to give it a little extra flair, we're going to put this down on the ground and then we'll put another post on top. I just thought I'd show you kind of how to weld and grind a seam so that you can't see it. Alright guys, now when you're grinding, you want to hold your grinder at the angle that you want it to be on. That's your bevel, so I'm holding it at about a 45. You don't need much of a bevel, so we're going to be pretty quick at it. Make sure you do the same amount of bevel on the corner as you do on the rest of it. The corners are very important because when you come around with weld, you want to make sure you get the corners as well. Alright guys, so now we've got this beveled all the way around. So as you can see, it's not a huge bevel. Like I said, we don't need much. Now we'll just run a hard disc through here. So we'll take a 1/4 inch grinding wheel and we'll just run a nice little groove in that about approximately 1/8 of an inch deep. Alright guys, now this is the next step. You put your cap on. This is also a very important step. It's the fitting part. If this cap is fit out of square, you're going to have a heck of a time trying to grind this 100% smooth. If this cap's a little bit larger, that's great. You can grind the cap down to meet the side of your box. If your cap isn't big enough, well, you're going to have to build it all up, and that's going to be very difficult. Because see, right now we can actually use the edge of this. We could grind here if we had to, and we can grind here like this, which will make that look like a solid box. So you'll be able to grind right up and down like this, and you'll be able to grind this way if you have to. So you got to make sure this is fit up really well. So really take your time, take your fingers very lightly, and just make sure the cap, if anything, is sticking out past the box all the way around. And then when you get to your seam, we've got to make 100% sure that it's fit up flat. And as you can see here, there's a little gap in my square. So what we're going to have to do, we're going to have to tack back here, and we're just going to have to open that up a touch, make it fit here. We'll tack it, and then we'll pull this out if we have to. It's light enough we can just push it out with our fingers and tack it. We just want to make sure that's 100% straight. Okay, so I've got this tacked. I'm happy with my fit up. It's good and flat across the top. I'm happy with my fit up all the way around. I just roughed these corners in. We'll grind these. I left a little meat on them. That way we can blend them into the sides. They're not ground totally off. It's always good to have a little extra material on the cap because you can grind it to suit this. So I left a little extra. So now we're ready to weld. Alright, there's the first bead. I think we need just a hair more wire speed by the sounds of it. Laid in okay. Welding is done. Okay, so now we're about to grind it. So what we want to do, I'll show you kind of what the weld profile looks like. So we got that weld on there, and how well you can see it. But let's get it ground off. Okay, so what we're going to do, we're going to hold our grinder real flat this way, and we're going to flatten this off. At no point do you want to dig into it this way. You don't want to dig into it that way, nothing like that. We're going to flatten this off, and then you're going to see me kind of just go like this with the grinder, and that's going to remove the mill scale. Because what happens is it'll get to a point where the sanding pad actually cuts the weld faster than the mill scale, and that leads to kind of scalloping. Okay, so if you notice when I was grinding, I stayed nice and flat on the cap plate. I got it ground down most of the way, and then you see me grind this weld, and I stayed flat right on top of the weld. I didn't touch the plate. That's very important. I want to shave the weld down, not the plate. Now, you'll see I was doing this and going different directions. The only time you're going to see me do that is when I'm taking off the mill scale. And what I mean by the mill scale is that gray stuff. That clogs up the pad, and like I said, it'll actually cut the weld faster than the mill scale, and then you'll get a kind of a dip. So I'm going to change that pad, and then we're going to finish it. Okay, so what you just see me do, I ground those welds off and I held my grinder flat the whole entire time. I came across here nice and flat. I just took my time, waited till it touched the plate, and as you see me, I just kept going back and forth until the weld profile is gone. I'm not going to worry about this little spot. At no point should you dig spots out. If in fact I wanted to get rid of that, you would have to add more weld. I'm not going to bother, because when I put this on the plate that it's going on, I'm going to have a bead of weld here and it's going to more than cover that. So I'm not going to waste my time trying to fix that up. That's very small, but a lot of guys, they'll have that little spot up here somewhere, and you'll see them try to dig it out. And once you start digging that out, you're going to have a dent there forever. So what you've got accomplished here now is you've got this ground off nice and flat, and that's fine. You can leave it just like that. I like to use my mini grinder like a mini milling machine. So I'm going to take it very slowly and I'm going to plane it just like this. And that's going to bring it up to a really nice shine. But more important, it's actually going to get rid of all these sanding marks. And that's kind of what I'm after. When that's blasted and painted, you'll never see any grinding marks in it. It'll just look like one solid piece of steel. All right, so I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so first thing you want to do, you want to be nice and patient. You got this ground off nice and flat. Now we're just going to take the grinder and go nice and slow and straight. And we're just going to let the grinder work, just like that. All right, guys, so as you see here, most of the sanding scratches are gone out of that. I don't know if you can see that or not. All right, guys, so you just seen me kind of face that off just like a mini milling machine, I like to say. If you have a look, you can see my reflection in it. And that had a seam, remember, right down here and right across here. And if you look at my reflection and know where there's a dent, know where there's a, like a deflection of any kind. So that tells me you can hardly see the sand and scratches on it. That tells me when that's blasted, that's going to be straight and smooth, just like that was a solid block of steel. So, yeah, if that was any good to you, hopefully that trick showed you something. I kind of develop these as I go. I'm sure other people do something very similar. That's just how I do it. So here's one that's all done. And as you see, I got the corners blended off nice. And I just broke the top edge just so it's not a square corner. Sometimes I leave them square, depends on what I'm going for. In this case, I didn't want it. I wanted a smooth edge that you could rub your hand on. So hopefully you get something out of it. If you like what you saw, please hit that like button. It'll help me out a lot. And please subscribe and, share it with your friends. All right, everybody. Well, thanks a lot for watching.